Ta-da! Well, today, Logan, the team at Lectric just announced the newest version of their cargo bike, which is the Xpedition 2.0. What you see in the stand right here is the 1.0 version of it, which has already really led in disrupting the cargo e-bike market because of the value that they've provided with the 1.0. Yep. And with the announcements they just made today of what the 2.0 is going to have, it's just incredible the value that they're going to be providing for cargo bikes and just e-bikes in general. We wanted to kind of run down the upgrades that you're going to see to the 2.0. So we popped the 1.0 in the stands, and right away one of the things you're going to see is from this rigid front fork, they're going to have not just any suspension now. They're actually going to have a dual spring suspension, which is going to provide not just more comfort up front, but it's going to provide a really great level of stability when you have kids or cargo in the back. So having a dual spring suspension up front is really a big deal.
And it's e-bike rated too. So
exactly.
Part of their, like, they did DIN testing on this from like a private company in Germany, made sure that like all of the cargo standards are just really, really great. They made sure that this thing was super safe, knowing and keeping in mind that people are going to be putting their kids on this bike, taking them to school, using it for those cargo purposes that we want to be seeing it used for.
With that suspension, you'll also notice they've gone from a 20x3 tire size, which before is what allowed it to kind of still offer the comfort without having the suspension. And now that they have the suspension up front, they've gone to a 20x2.5 tire, which isn't much, but it is going to still provide a more agile, more nimble ride experience.
Right.
Some of the other things up front that you're going to notice on the 2.0 version is an upgraded cockpit, going from their old LCD screen to a new color display, which offers turn signals so that you can communicate when you're taking the kids out and being in that traffic situation, which is really what most cargo e-bike riders are going to be in. One of the other things you're going to see change is from a twist throttle now to a thumb throttle, giving you a little bit more control. They've also upgraded the grips to a locking grip up here, which over time, the current grips can kind of loosen up. So now you're going to be in more control and not have to worry about that from a rider experience. And then there's a big drivetrain upgrade from a 7-speed Shimano tourney shifter to the
8-speed Shimano Altus shifter.
8-speed Shimano.
So you're going to have a little bit more, like range as far as, those little increments in between shifting, but also a little bit wider of a range.
And a more ergonomic shifter up front instead of having to move your hand up to the tourney level.
So having like a better shifter as well as the thumb throttle is going to be a real game changer in the cockpit. I think that's going to make a big difference in the rideability of it. Just have to think about those things that much less, and so
along with
much more safe.
The upgrade in the drivetrain, you're going to see an upgrade from a cadence sensor to their PWR torque sensor. Tell us a little bit about that, Logan.
So the new PWR torque sensor, and Lectric has been pretty vocal that they were a little bit hesitant to move towards the torque sensor, especially in this bike, because the class 3 speeds usually with the torque sensors require a lot of output, because those torque sensors work by sensing how much power you're putting into that pedal and equating that to how much electrical assistance it's going to give you, rather than a cadence sensor where every time that you pass a certain magnet on here, then it's going to engage a little bit and engage a little bit. So with their new power torque sensor, it's supposed to help a lot with that high-end output and just how that feels. So it's supposed to be a little bit more natural when you're in those class 3 speeds, 20 to 28 miles an hour.
Utilizing the power of the motor a lot more efficiently without you having to experience fatigue of pumping harder and harder just to get to those upper echelons of what your motor could do for you.
Yep. And that's going to be a big deal. They did a lot with that. So they did the power torque, but they also used the same motor that they used. I don't know if it's the same motor exactly, but they used a lot of that technology that they used in their new X-Peak, which made the motor a lot more quiet. And then it also gave it that 1,300 watt peak output. So a big output. It is a 750 watt, like sustained output motor, so that you can still do those big cargo loads. They say you can do 300 pounds for the rider, 300-pound cargo, some combination of that, and it's about 450-pound total capacity. So lots of cool stuff there, but also with that new motor, they added like a new shroud because that motor is way more quiet. And it's way more quiet than a lot of the motors in the similar cargo bike space. But they also added like a shroud that kind of covers in here to protect the rear passenger riders from, any loose and dangling items that go in there. We've seen a lot of the, competing cargo bikes that have what their like 1.0 did, that they have some version of like these plastic plates or like mesh plates that kind of go. But a lot of those kind of act like an echo chamber. Like I kind of just think putting your phone into a cup when you're trying to make your music louder at your house or whatever. That's kind of how it affects the motors, that it just amplifies that sound. So with this new shroud, it's kind of slotted and it lets that, that out, and it makes it way more quieter and really allows that to just be a really quiet, seamless motor. Even though it's got way more output, it's going to be a quieter motor than their 1.0 version. They also did some new battery options. So they already had the dual battery option. They're now also offering a dual long-range battery option, which they said that in Lectric's independent testing that they were doing allowed them to do like throttle-only 100+ mile ranges, which is
crazy.
Absolutely insane, because that's going to help kind of give you a better idea of what that is really going to be like, because when you think about the range, it's like, oh, like, is that in eco mode? How hard am I pedaling to get that range? I mean, with the dual battery long range, they were actually able to do 100+ miles throttle only. So
gone is range anxiety.
Yeah, range anxiety is gone. You could probably like on the other end of it that you're going to be going so long in between charges that you're like forgetting about like, oh man, like it's been 4 days. I probably need to charge my bike. I've taken the kids to school every day this week,
Speaking of charging, if you get the long range, the dual long range version, it's going to come with a fast charger. So it's going to charge within...
They said 3-ish hours, like about 3 hours for a full charge, which is crazy. I mean, that's like 2.5 times faster than the regular ones where we were seeing like 7-8 hour, like total charge time. So for people who are going to be, like staying at a campground or going on these camping expeditions where you have like shorter time frames that you actually have the power available, it's going to be a really, really big deal. So that's a really, really awesome upgrade and package. And now
there's
for Black
3
Friday,
battery options.
Yeah.
So you have a single standard range?
Yeah, I think it's single standard range, dual standard range, and then dual long range. So a couple of different battery options there that really, tailor to what your commute and what your needs are for using the cargo bike. So I think that gives you a lot of really good options. So if you're worried about how long is this going to last, like is this going to, take me and my kids around the campsites, around, the neighborhood, to school, whatever it is. And speaking about that, they also redesigned their orbiter, which is kind of like their kid carrier, little setup for that, like, because originally you go in, I forget what they're called, like the Thule, like car seats basically. So after you go from the Yeps to the orbiter for those, slightly older kids, they originally had just one bar that went all the way around, and the skepticism for that is if your kid is holding the outside bars right there and then the bike was to go over, then their hands are exposed and potentially, at risk. So knowing that this is going to be a bike that is going to be taking kids to school and stuff regularly, they wanted to redesign that, and they did a really cool design that they have 2 bars. So now the inside bar is for holding on to for the kids, and then there's an outside bar that's going to be rated to protect, that impact so that their hands and arms, aren't getting affected by that if they were still holding on to the rails when you went down.
And it also now has like the rear passenger. So if there was 2 kids back there, the rear passenger does have a nice padded back seat.
Yeah.
And then within that frame, there's places you can add accessories like water bottle holders. So the person who is sitting on the back can still access that instead of just the ones that are up front.
Yeah.
I think it's neat to say that, we sell a lot of bikes from different companies and they're all great, but Lectric is really continuing to get feedback from their customers and update and make changes, even though they probably didn't necessarily have to do that to this bike, because this one already is kind of really destroying everyone else as far as value goes. There's some other bikes that have a lot better features, but there's a big difference in value. But now they've upgraded it, and they didn't just upgrade, features like that torque sensor and the battery and the motor, but they really thought through everything. It's a little bit more beautiful design than what this current one is, and then all those little features and accessories come together to just really blow us away with what's coming down the pipeline. Yeah,
I think that it's a little bit longer, and then they also said that they got rid of like kind of the spider web design, so they did redesign this back like rear triangle here so that it looks a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit more stiff, and it's a little bit longer. So that also is kind of helping with just that overall ride feel, especially weighted down, that it feels really smooth, really nimble, and just looks a little bit cleaner. So I think lots of good updates from them, and still keeping it like at the base price with that single battery option, still $13.99, which is hundreds of dollars cheaper than the next option. And Lectric is notorious for having so many good sales where they have like all these extra accessories. Right now for the Black Friday sale, they have so much extra goodies that they're throwing in. If you get the dual battery long range option, you get absolutely everything. You get the suspension seat post, you get that new redesigned orbiter, you get the, like the whole essential carry the kids package that they do, you get the fast charger. I mean, they threw all of it in. So
upgraded light.
Really, really good for, the value and what they're doing. They're always including so many little cool extras, but I mean, if you get this thing fully loaded, you get a ton of value at it. And the dual long range is $19.99 right now, which is still like right on par with what the cost of all of the competitors, like fully loaded, but like stock
and a lot of those
cargo bikes are.
And a lot of those competitors are still with a 14 amp hour battery. We're talking about 35 amp hours of power.
35 amp hour combined power. I mean, that's a ton of range, a ton of power, way more than you're getting from a lot of the other companies that they're competing with right now, and for less with all of the included accessories, especially for Black Friday right now.
I can't wait for us to get a hands on it and do a riding review for you guys. But know that that's on sale right now. You can pre-order. You can pre-order directly through Lectric. You can pre-order through us if you're here in our Reno, Nevada area. But I'm so excited to continue to see what the boys at Lectric are doing to continue to be disruptors in this industry, to provide value and high-quality e-bikes.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this new Unleash, and we're really excited to get our hands on the new one. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next time.
We're like, how do we end this
And how do we end it? What's our tagline?